Hey, this is Pastor Curry, pastor of the East Zion Fair Baptist Church, Wilmington's most exciting church, the church that love ya and anything you can do about it. Today with Coffee with Curry, I have invited Councilman Jay Street to come in and just have a conversation with me because I am really troubled today. I'm troubled about what happened in Buffalo, New York. I'm troubled what happened in Orange County. I'm troubled what's going on in the city of Wilmington. And we see racism, white supremacy at an all-time high. My goal today in this show is to talk about it, face it, confront it, and see if we can find some solutions. Call somebody real quickly. Tell them Coffee with Curry is on, and let's get after it. And we're back. Well, today I come to you with a heavy heart, and I moved some things around. We were supposed to have a different show, but in light of what's going on in our country, in light of the white supremacy, in light of white nationalism, in light of racism that is on full display, I wanted to dedicate a show or spend some time just having a conversation. I asked Brother Street to come in because I know that, one, he's not going to just agree with what I have to say, but he has been in this fight for a very long time and not afraid to share his thoughts, his feelings, and his professionalism as it relates to these topics. One of the things I'm going to say before I start my conversation with Brother Street is that it's time for us who are part of the Christian community, especially the ministers, it's time for us to lift up our voices like a trumpet and cry loud. It's time for us to begin to speak from the pulpits that the ugly hand of racism is beyond out of control, starts with a lot of our local government, some of the policies and the regentification that is occurring. We got to talk about white supremacy. We have to stop saying, let's just pray over it. Because when you pray and you don't do anything, you have nothing and nothing will come out of it. We have to lift our voices to all of our ministers, to all of those pastors who may sneak and watch me. It's important that we take the leadership because our people need you. What happened at 8th and Adam was despicable. Even though I agreed that they needed to move out of those homes so that they will be safe, it didn't just happen yesterday.
But what happened?
Well, thank you. What literally happened is that somebody complained that the side of the wall in one of the houses, one of the apartments, had fallen in. When L&I came out, L&I was able to see that it is not safe to be there. So they immediately posted everybody had to go. That I don't argue with because you want the people to be safe. But what I argue about is that they had no plan to help poor colored people. There is too much going on with regentification that's stressing me out. As a pastor, as a person, I shared with you before we came on the air today that I'm doing all right as a person. Financially, I'm doing fine. But I cannot live comfortable in my position as a pastor, my position financially, and watch my people constantly be beat and beat and beat. So today I want to dedicate this show to just talking about the white supremacy, the white nationalism. It started when Obama was elected. The response to Obama was Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has certainly opened the ugly door for it to no longer be a hidden hand, but it's all out in public. And I'm very concerned. I'm saying a whole lot of things. I'm very concerned even, again, with the 8th and Adam Street because I saw Matt Dinn there.
Matt who?
I mean, not Matt Dinn. That's
Myers.
Matt Myers. I'm sorry. Matt Dinn was the
county
county.
executive.
I'm sorry. I saw Matt Myers there. I saw our state representative Dorsey Walker there. I didn't see too much others. I didn't see city council there. I didn't see the mayor there. I saw a statement from his office, which is all we always see. But in order, if that would have happened in the 8th district, it would have been a full, this is where we're going to place them. We have houses that are abandoned that need to be fixed up. I'm hearing about what they're doing over in Riverside, how they are taking public housing and it's no longer public housing. The new stuff they're building, you got to have perfect credit in order to get those houses. But yet they were public housing for those who don't have the finances that others have. This is the ugly hand of white supremacy, of racism, of Jim Crow laws that is going on. So today, you told me to calm down. I'm trying my best to be calm, and for you to tell me to calm down, then something must be wrong in my spirit today.
No, there's nothing wrong with your spirit, but if as so-called leaders we're going to lead, we can't lead solely on emotion.
Right.
And sometimes when we're emotional, we don't convey our message to its fullest potential. That's my only concern. We're in this fight, and unfortunately, there's no question in my mind, I'm not going to live to see fairness in this country. I'm not going to live to see fairness in this state. I'm not going to live to see fairness in this city. But I reflect back on the legend of Louis L. Redden. We're in court over a school-related matter. Mr. Redden was in a nursing home. And I had asked Judge Williams how Mr. Redden was doing. Judge said he's fine. He can't see and he can't hear, but he's doing okay. Well, we got into an argument over what we were going to do in this particular instance and the strategy. And we were divided. Wintertime, Judge Williams puts on his coat. Well, I'm grown now. I can holler at the judge. What are you doing? Where are you going? I'm not sure about this one. I'm going to ask the old man. I said, have you lost your mind? You just told me he can't see and he can't hear. Why are you going up there bothering him? And he said, and I'll never forget it, he doesn't need to see to answer my question, and he can hear if I yell. That man is up in the nursing home on his back. Lenny called, wasn't a cell phone then, it was a pager. Pager went off, said, old man said go. My point being, that man on his back in the nursing home never came off the battlefield. That's why I'm not coming off the battlefield. And I want to make it relevant to Du Bois's theory of the talented tenth. And the theory of the talented tenth said, those who have talent, those who get educated, have a responsibility to lead. Yes. My point being, those of us who have benefited so immensely from the struggle have a responsibility to give back, hand back, work back, and do everything we can for the advancement of our people. And so what I heard you saying this morning is pastors have a role. Well, we all have a role. Whether you're a pastor, whether you're a plumber, we all have a role. And it's an important role. But as I look and reflect back, I guess I was 12 when the March on Washington. Everybody in my family, I'm not talking about my immediate family, cousins, aunts, uncles, everybody from around the country came to D.C. But it's so different now. We marched, peaceful marches, march demonstration, and when the dogs were sicked on people trying to vote in the South, the nation was empathetic. Dr. King, as a strategist, had studied Gandhi and peaceful protests, and as people were attacked by the police, the country was empathetic, and the civil rights movement evolved and was very successful because of that activity. When you look at what has transpired over this last weekend with the shooting in the church, America, those MAGA people and all those people having the unmitigated gall to say things like it's a false flag, things like somebody sent him and he's not this and he's not that. No empathy, no sympathy, no concern for the retired police officer who was murdered, the elders, people in their 80s and 70s, females. No empathy, no concern, no compassion. So we're in a brand new situation where I feel like facing and confronting these QAnon people and these MAG people, it's no different than having to confront the Ku Klux Klan.
Absolutely.
Okay? The fact of the matter is, as the old Southern desegregation lawyer said, they took off their sheets, now they button down. And when we're in a situation where you've got people who sound like people that don't have good sense, sitting in places of significant power and having significant influence, talking and saying these outrageous things, everything in the nation has changed. And now the question is, what are we as a people, what are we as a community going to do about it? And you're correct. It trickles down from the murders in Buffalo to 8th and Adams, between 8th and 9th on Adams Street, where all of a sudden people are paying their rent and they don't have anywhere to stay. And you got a city administration that by policy does not care. Now you look at what has transpired over the last several years. Number one, at the point where the city treasurer ended up being sued by the mayor because money that was appropriated to the so-called Wilmington Housing Partnership, she didn't think it should go to wherever the mayor wanted to put it. That's $500,000 in housing money for people of low income that it was never resolved. What would happen with that $500,000? Then as we speak, you've got $446,000 of money that was misappropriated. Okay, and HUD is questioning it. There's $1 million that's set aside that has been put in jeopardy, that's not in play for low income and moderate income people to be able to utilize. Thus, in a situation where people had to leave, she didn't have any revenue available to help them. Well, and folks who don't like me sit here, well, street, you know, it's the responsibility of the landlord.
How come he's not in jail?
It's responsibility of the landlord to see to it that when people are evicted because of the property, that he has to place them. Well, he didn't.
Right.
Okay? And you got to go into court and make him. And then, of course, any landlord would say, I'm broke, I don't have the revenue, I've got to fix this. And if I'm broke and I don't do it, then who does? But the Lord works in mysterious ways because of the way community services has been able to run and because of the advocacy and really the expertise of Councilman Penrose Hollins and the priority he's given over the 30 years that he's been sitting there. Housing was his major priority. We had the Hope Center, and we had revenue available to help. And so now you've got two separate branches of government who are in completely different positions as relates to the provision of housing and the provision of emergency housing. Now, the city gave the county $1 million last month for emergency housing. So there was some money there, but the city doesn't want to run the programs.
They just want to get rid of it.
Okay, they just don't want to be bothered.
But
so
you kind of said several things. Number one, how much does it cost to show up? How much? Tell me that answer.
I don't know. Pastor, gas is $4.50 a gallon.
Okay, so if it's $4.50 a gallon, it take about a gallon of gas to show up. Biden,
Or you could walk or do like the county executive. He rode his bike.
and you know what? It wasn't a political stunt neither. He genuinely cared about people.
Because he lives there.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's another good thing. But let me move
It's a
this.
block away from where he
I
lives.
watched Regal's his press release. You know, I'm sick and tired of being accused of fighting this administration, and the administration is not understanding. I have shared with the mayor several times that he needs to center himself around people who understand humanity. To show up, Mr. Mayor, and I'll look at the screen and say this, to show up would have said you at least cared, even if you didn't have resources. Not to show up is to say I could care less. Most people are not reading these press statements that are coming out. Let's act as if I don't know what I'm talking about. What's going on over in Riverside? That was public housing. I saw some beautiful houses over there. Is that still public housing?
Of course not. And the fact of the matter is, to my knowledge, Wilmington, Delaware is the only the Wilmington Housing Authority is the only housing authority, I think, in the country that has been allowed to tear down square blocks of public housing, both in Riverside and in Southbridge,
Right.
and not replace it anywhere.
Right.
It's unconscionable, it's unheard of, but it predates this administration. And
Oh,
the
most
fact of
definitely.
the fact of the matter is, the Baker administration made a determination that the problem in the city was low-income people, and therefore we're going to drive them out of the city. And you do that by tearing down square blocks of public housing, and you force people out of the city. And I'm just trying to let folks see and understand, put this together. You're going to take that public property across from St. Francis Hospital, and you're going to put 74 new houses over there. The developers benefit. It's economically beneficial to the city, but at the total disrespect of the residents who live there and don't want it.
Because you have already revealed the plan, and somebody may be saying, well, you know, Baker was a black mayor. He did some things for the black community, but he did some things against the black community too. I know that, what was that chief of staff name? That was his chief of staff. I can't.
Bill Montgomery.
Bill Montgomery.
He was an excellent chief of staff.
You're right. He was the mayor of the city. He was the mayor, and I'll say things that y'all know but won't say. He was the mayor of the city, kept the mayor out of the office so that whatever needed to be signed and whatever ceremonial things need to be done was done.
But that
wasn't
his fault.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't his fault. But it speaks to the person who would be watching us saying, well, he was a black mayor. Everything black is not black. And these policies is what's bothering me. Riverside, Southbridge, both of those areas. I've come out of the projects in Philadelphia, Raymond Rosen, projects 23rd and Diamond. When they tore down our high rises, they were required to put affordable houses on that property.
But we're in church.
What that
And
mean?
You know as well as I do, for far too long, you got far too many Negro spirituals running around talking black and living all the Negro they can, who are doing detrimental things purposely
Yes.
and intentionally to their own people.
And that's why we have to stop being these shiny nickels. And that's what the problem is. The problem is they're and that's why I start off by even speaking to our ministers today, our pastors, that we have to stop receiving these chicken sandwiches. And we have to speak out.
But historically and traditionally, the people who were out front
Right.
and the most vocal in the struggle,
Right.
going all the way back to Du Bois, okay, were our ministers,
Absolutely.
were our doctors, as we got them, our undertakers,
Lawyers.
and lawyers. Those people who were independent totally independent of the system.
Right.
Those are the people who have to lead us out of this struggle now.
And that's why I'm making these comments, and I'm not trying to make it to be make my ministers, my fellow pastors mad at me, but I want the parishioners to start rising up, saying, Pastor, what are we doing? See, we get comfortable, Street. We get comfortable, and I cannot afford my child to believe that the people who don't have what she has are less worthy. In my development, we have a center where you can go if you're stressed out. You can play basketball. You can run around. It's just so much going on. We have one owned two owned recreational facilities in this city. We have one here at East Zion Fair that's not in that equation. Hicks Anderson, and what's the other one over there on the west side? I mean, isn't there one more?
There's no other city.
Oh, so that's the only city one.
Yes.
In a city with almost 80,000 residents.
By the same token, you look at what does the city do to assist in any way, shape, form, or fashion the other community centers. Okay, People's Settlement is sitting there. It's limited to what it does in terms of daycare or renting the building for daycare. But People's Settlement historically and traditionally was a focal point for the children on the east side.
Right.
Okay? All of our schools had after-school activities sponsored by the Department of Parks and Recreation, and I said on our show, The Source, what does the city do for its own children?
Well, that's where what I'm trying to do, for those of you who are just watching, we're going to take a commercial break in a second, but for those of you who are watching, what I'm trying to do off the cuff, because this wasn't the show we were supposed to have today, is I'm trying to elevate your conscious, your awareness of the racism, the white supremacy that we are experiencing in America, but specifically right here in Wilmington. I talked about Riverside. I talked about here over in Southbridge. The public housing has been done away with pretty much. We still have some public housing here, but for the most part, they're building new houses. And these houses you can't even afford to get in. The term is called regentification. Push the poor people out, and then we'll have the city for the elite. That is a no-no. People were born here. People sweat, they worked, they provided for their families, they raised families, and to be treated in this matter is not fair. So when I come back from this commercial break, I want to go a little bit further and talk a little bit more, because this young man who went up in New York, Buffalo, he spotted the place out, he shot up the place, and he was gently removed.
See, now you're going to start me to cursing. And, the fact of the matter is, all across this nation, our young people have been shot and killed by police didn't have guns.
That's right. That's
okay?
right.
They
That's
had
right.
to go look for a gun. And situation here, we can, Jeremy McDowell shot in a wheelchair. And all of a sudden, at the scene, they found, they said they found a gun. Well, it was a 38. Our young people don't carry 38s. That's all old people's gun. Okay, so, those who have their view about how the gun got there, there's certainly different views, but he's sitting in a wheelchair. But this 18-year-old, he's killed a former police officer, he's killed elders, and he gets arrested?
Gently.
He gets arrested? Give me a break.
And look at
it's
what was
fundamentally unfair and flat out rotten. And if he had any kind of color on him,
they would have shot him
they'd have shot him multiple times, and there wouldn't have been no trial. And the worst thing that can happen to him, and the folks can run in and put on their displays and have be in front of the cameras, the worst thing that can happen to him is he can do life in prison. Okay? And so why are y'all going in showing off, talking about, well, it's a hate crime, and we're going to deal with it federally. So, what does that change?
Doesn't change anything. Let's take a quick commercial break and we're going to come back. We'll be right back. And we're back. I put some notes down, Brother Street, that I wanted to just share with the community. Racism is discrimination by an institution or an individual against a people based on their color. Racism can occur in policies and it can occur in practices, but it has to be done by the person who has the power. The reason why we constantly go at our politicians and elected officials is because they have the power to put in the policies to bring a neutral ground. You've heard me say many times that what's going on over in Riverside, what's going on here in Southbridge as it relates to the public housing, to do away with that, and then we have a crisis on our hand like we had just this week on Adams Street, it's disgraceful that the city could not respond.
But that's not the first time the city hadn't been able to respond. The floods that we had.
Yes.
I mean, at what point, okay, if in the situation with the flooding, what did you learn? What did you change? Mm-hmm. And what emergency provisions did you set aside? Mm-hmm. Okay, first time you didn't know. Well, you don't have a responsibility to plan for future emergencies, mm-hmm. and when you don't do that, you end up in the exact same situation we had yesterday. So this isn't the first time for this administration.
But look at the budget. What's in the budget? I need Kobe for this question. What's in the budget to support the poor, the needy, the communities that are messed up?
The budget that asks for a tax increase and
and who's going to end up paying it is the poor.
The highest proposed budget in the city's history, $171 million. Why do we need $20 more million in the previous administration?
Because we got to make sure these developers get their properties and get their building going and get our streets for certain parts of the city really moving strong. But with regentrification, all parts of the city are going to be taken care of because they're going to make sure that they push out. But again, let's talk about even the raising of taxes. Who's going to pay that? But the poor. Well, they don't own property, but the landlords is going to push it down to.
Correct. Okay, as soon as the landlord gets his or her tax bill, then the landlord is going to raise the rent of all the people that rent from him. It's that simple.
Yeah. Did anybody ask the question yet? We're talking about this whole Adams Street issue before all the information, well, it's still emerging. But the landlord sat in his car. When I was watching the various...
The man was sitting in a truck now.
Okay, what's the difference between a car and a truck? Is a vehicle. He sat in his vehicle and nothing happened. Cops out there, the county execs out there. He sat in his car and said, what do you expect me to do? It's law in the city.
Well, it's you know, some of the tenants had heated conversations with him. NAACP president had a heated conversation with him. And, you know, at the end of the day, there were people who were screaming the words, slumlord.
What? Black mold? Black mold? That's slumlord. Walls falling in? That's slumlord. But because they were poor, he can get away with it. I really would like to know, and I made the four of this, how many complaints were lodged against these properties? Now something has fallen in, they run out. But I don't think this just occurred the other day.
The bigger picture is how many other properties and how many other landlords in the city are similarly situated?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you can't make the assumption that this is the only one that's unique and to itself. And, you know, you had children there.
Yeah.
How them children get to school today?
Yeah,
Where did they go to school? And, you know, the number of situations this year in schools with racial overtones, with a lot of racial tension that we have purposely and intentionally tried to hold in and keep from being in the public press because we don't want to add fuel to the fire. But in the 40s, going on in my 48th year now that I've been playing in the school arena, I've never seen anything like it. Not the number of situations and not the level of intensity. And we've got work to do. And, you know, you talk about the pastors and the church, and one of the things as we continue to talk about the violence, a lot of questions have been asked about what the ministers should do. And I'm saying to you, and I say to everybody else, get them in church. Get the children in church. In the absence of a spiritual foundation, no person, but especially our children, is going to be made whole. And if you learn the 10 Commandments and you're properly raised in the church, the likelihood of you going out there in that street and killing somebody is very, very slim. The likelihood of you going out there and being actively involved in the distribution of all the things that are negative and poison our community, it subsides significantly. And I have no idea what would have happened to me if I hadn't been raised in the church. And my mother, God rest her, you know, you had to go to church all day. We're in church all day. Vacation, Bible school, junior ushers, junior choir, the whole 9 yards. But as somebody who spent way too much time in the street, at points where I had to make critical decisions, basically in my head, in my conscience, and in my subconscious, that spiritual foundation was there.
Well, the Bible says that train up a child in the way that it should go, that it will, when it gets older, will not depart from it. And that's what you're saying. Even though your body may have moved away from it, but your foundation was so strong, you were able to make decisions based out of that. But this is one of the shows I'm going to be having very shortly. Is the church still relevant? Now, I know you from the old school. And I'm not saying old, because I know you like to jump on when I say those things. But you're from the, I know. But you're from the old school. But that's a real question. As a pastor, I struggle. I have so many ministries in this church for young people and for old seniors, as well as for middle age. But I struggle with the reality because I talk to people. Me being an educator, I talk to people and they say, Pastor, it's just not relevant anymore. Has the church lost its salt, not its savior? Because we believe that Jesus is still strong, but the salt, responding to these type of needs is what makes the church relevant.
But there's a decline in church participation across the nation.
It is.
And across races. And at the same time, there's an increase in hate crime, hateful activities. And if anybody thinks that there's no correlation to that, I just respectfully have to disagree. Well, when we're in a situation where we got a former president who the public press has told us father was a Ku Klux Klansman, what do you expect as a result of that kind of influence? And you've got all these people following that to their own detriment. What has, for the people who adore and support him, what has he done for them? Well, how has their life changed?
I'm going to tell you what he's done.
How have their life become any better as a result of anything he's done?
He has allowed their agenda to be pushed. What we have not talked about. Yes, they do. White supremacy. Yes, they do. That's their agenda. Their agenda is not wealth. Their agenda is that these colored people are pushing us out, and this country is going to become more colored than it is white.
Well, nobody told y'all to stop making babies. I only want here.
Well, absolutely. I hear what you're saying. But please understand, Trump was a millionaire. He couldn't identify. one writer said in one of the articles that where he sits and go to the bathroom is worth more than some people's houses that support him. But he was able to push their white supremacy, white nationalism agenda.
Well, what the scary part is, it ain't over.
No, nowhere near. And it's getting worse. Because now, can we jump back to Buffalo? Because the mother and father came out and said they blame the pandemic for their child being radicalized.
They raised him.
No, they said the pandemic.
Yeah, well, they raised him, and I don't care what anybody says. The fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Now you're gonna start me, and now I'm gonna be over emotional because the media has never had a whole lot of sympathy for when our young people do something wrong,
Right.
running to their parents, and their parents being in a position to say, my son this, my child this, my son that. But the media had instant empathy for the parents of this murderer. And they're apologizing, and they're making statements, and they're blaming somebody else. You know, so it's just fundamentally rotten and unfair across the board.
And I agree with you that you don't fall too far from the tree because the question I kept saying, okay, if you want to say it was on the pandemic for them to be radicalized, then what happens to the fact that the father did admit that he gave him one of those shotguns? What happens to the fact that all of him altering those guns were done at the house? All that writing, white lives matter and black this and black that, all of that stuff was done at the house. Where were they when all of that was being done? Now they look like Sunday school teachers.
Well, I think that their son's behavior speaks for itself, and a lot of that is being concerned that they can be held responsible.
They should be.
They furnished a gun, they raised him, and they're worried about losing what they have as a result of his activities, and as they probably should be, but they could give less than a care about the loss of lives in Buffalo.
Yeah, you know, there was 10 individuals. One was a deacon who was helping a woman put groceries in the car. I don't want to go through all of them. One was a 86-year-old church mother who was going to get some strawberries for her strawberry shortcake she wanted to make. She had just left her husband, who was in a nursing home, and she goes every day to see him and see about him and take care of him on her way home. She was minding her business. We're here comfortable in Delaware, but we're only
How
one.
comfortable are we?
Not at all. But people who watch.
Where are we safe?
Nowhere.
No, I'm talking about right here in Wilmington. Where are we safe?
No. Oh, well, Riverfront maybe. If you want me to just throw out a joke in there. But the reality of it is we're not. We can go into one of these who knows who want to copy. That boy went down there twice to scope out the place, scope out the place to see what he could do. He talked to some of those people. And we
But
have
this
to
is
face
not
the
the
fact.
first time, okay?
Absolutely
the
not.
shootings in the church
Yeah.
in the Carolinas,
Yes. Mother.
okay? It's the same thing all over again.
Absolutely.
And as a nation, nothing is going to be done about it. The far left is going to continue to show off and show up and talk loud and really say nothing because they can't do anything about it. And the far right is basically saying, y'all can go pound sand, we don't care. And when you got people who are so hateful that they don't care about murder on the one hand, and in the same time this week, criticizing the administration for sending baby formula to the immigrant babies who've just crossed the border and are in our country as potential immigrants. Just So their whole view is let those babies die.
Well, see, that's that inhumanity
I mean,
piece.
they're not only racist, they're just inhumane. And the struggle in the 60s was able to be successful because of the empathy of goodwill people in our country and around the world. I don't see that
Right.
in our country now. So
There's
you
a
know,
fear.
are we in a situation now where you know when the Panthers came along, they said, you know, don't be listen to every voice, and don't be lifting every voice and sing, lift every fist and swing. Where are we?
Yeah. Listen, we're in a state now, Street, and hear this from a brother who
Or is it
love
lift
and
every
respect.
gun and sling? I mean, come on.
This is the problem. Back in the 60s, there was a group of white people who genuinely had a heart for the coloreds. What is going on now is that this white nationalism is so strong that they're feeling that they're being replaced, that even some good white people are saying, I'm going to be quiet because we may be on the verge of extinction. Street, and I know.
But you look at something I saw on my phone in this news feed where a Lyft driver
Yeah.
was picking up somebody, and the passenger got in and said, "Oh, you're a white guy, and you know you speak English," and he's like, "Get out, just get out of my car." You know, that is so inappropriate. And then the male that was with her called him an in-lover and talking about he's going to punch him in the face, and the Lyft driver said, "No, I'm calling the cops on you," but he wouldn't let him in. So we still have those kind of people of goodwill,
Right.
but they're catching
Yes.
a lot of grief and havoc. But, you know, I look at what happened not only in our country but across the world when George Floyd was murdered, and there's still hope. There's still hope. But the question is, our challenge is, what do we do to keep that hope and turn it into something positive? Because, you know, I look at the racism and I look at, while I was running Hilltop, I look at us as a people, and every once in a while, you know, it's historically African-American centered, created some diversity with the Hispanic, but by people who live there. But every once in a while, we would have white kids enrolled.
Right.
And our children treated those children who were different than them with kindness and love. Gave them in situations the same way with children that are handicapped. Our children tend to thrive to them and go to them to protect them,
and that's what children do.
encourage them. But that's what our children do.
Right, right. But let me just say this to you. You asked the question. You said, you know, you didn't ask. You said that you believe there's some hope that's coming up, and I do believe that too. But this is how I believe it. It's when our white brothers and sisters stop saying, "I'm not racist," and become anti-racist. Way with not being racist. It's time now to become anti-racist. What is the difference, Pastor? The difference is when you're not racist, you'll sit back. Dr. King said, in order for evil to prevail, it only takes good people to sit back and do nothing. That's a non-racist person. But if you anti-racist, that means you speak out against it. That means you are moving in a direction where you're treating everybody fairly, where you will not tolerate racism of any form, of any community. And that's the only hope we would have. We need some don't come talking I'm not racist stuff to me. Are you anti-racist? What are you doing to ensure, for all of my white brothers and sisters who watch, whether you're watching because you despise me or you love me, we're looking for anti-racist people because we're living in a very dreadful moment. We're going to come back in a minute. We got some more we want to talk about. We'll be right back. I think that was another 20 minutes, wasn't it? And we're back. Had an opportunity to talk to you a little bit about, racism, white supremacy. We didn't give a real definition, but it's when, it's basically the belief that white people are the superior race and they do not want to be classed as anything less than. I pulled this show together today, calling upon Councilman Street to come because he's been in this battle. He's been in this fight for a long time, and he's not afraid. And not that we always agree on our politics or on the various things that's happening, how we should handle it. It's just that I respect people who fight for the voiceless, who fight for that individual who can't fight for themselves. I just believe that God blesses us when we can help those who can't help themselves. And today, I'm troubled about what happened in Buffalo. I'm troubled about what happened in Orange County, Los Angeles. I'm troubled what's happening right here in our city. Adams Street is no strange event. For the mayor, I know you're tired of me, but I'm not going anywhere. Not to show up just to say, look, we're going to do everything we can to help you. But send out a press statement from that Rago guy.
John Rago is a master craftsman when it comes to...
That's what the problem is. We got too many master craftsmen. Okay? I ain't got time for that. Show up. Biden has gotten on he got in his jet, he went to down there. Even if people don't believe him, his presence speaks to empathy. Is the black lives in this city valued enough, Mr. Mayor, for you to come out of the comfort, cozy zone of your office and be among us? I won't stop with you because, as we looked at the report, this recording was done on Tuesday, so maybe some more stuff happened since then. But even city council, you have your 7 votes. Some of them are in very hard-hit districts. They support you. But where are we? When I saw State Representative Walker, County Exec Myers there, I said, at least they have someone. And NAACP was there and a couple others, but I'm just talking about elected officials. At least they have someone. They may even say, Street, I ain't see Street there. Listen, Street was right much in the mix of it. Because some people were informed about what was going on because of the phone calls that he made to get folks where they needed to be. So it's not even an issue of judging. It's really an issue of your heart. And as we talk about racism, and I ended the last segment talking about anti-racism, what I'm seeing happening with our city leadership is saying to us that I don't care about y'all. Let's just get them out of our city like they did with moving the homeless from one part of the city to the next part of the city, hoping they'd push them out of the city, moving people who are in public housing out of the way. But violence can happen even in the elite communities. We have to do better. We have to care more. So, Brother Street, I know that you had to calm me down today, and I'm very glad you did. But I'm concerned. This overt racism, schools, housing, employment, where do we go from here?
Policing.
And policing, yes, please, Lord, don't let me forget that. Where do we go from here?
Well, we've got to continue to do what we were taught and to fulfill our obligation and responsibility as a part of the leadership, and it has to be done collectively. Elected officials, advocates, pastors. We can't sit back and just continue to be critical because, as the old cliche says, if you ain't part of the solution,
you're part of
the problem.
Yeah.
And we can't be part of the problem, and we got to be part of the solution. And I still have optimism left because there's still many people of goodwill who live in this town, who live in this state, who are willing to help. So we've got some, I think, some good elected officials. We have some elected officials that are not so good. But everybody has their own methodology and style. And, you know, if I am never in the public press, in the newspaper, in photo ops again, I ain't mad at nobody. I've been in the public press as much as anybody, so that's not my style. I don't go showing up and being there. It's what you're able to do and work with people to get something done that is what is more important to me. And it's not a matter about getting credit for this and credit for that. It's our ability to work together to accomplish things that need to be accomplished at a very important time. And certainly, I wasn't sitting idly by and doing nothing.
Absolutely.
Because that's in the heart of my district.
Right. I just want to make sure, because, you know, there are people who will quickly cast judgment.
Well, that's fine.
But I know, you know, that there are people who have shared what you were doing and making sure that things were handled. Here's one solution, I think, to help us.
But it's not handled because the housing that people got last night and they're going to have this week, that's not permanent housing. Where are they going to go? And if you've paid your rent over here, where are you supposed to have money to be able to find a new actual place to stay? Who's going to assist them with getting the furniture and their personal belongings out of those apartment buildings? So this struggle is not over. Merely having a place to stay for a night or 2 nights or even a week, that's woefully insufficient to resolving their long-term problem.
Right. Well, we hope by the time we get to the source, we got some answers to some of those questions, because that is definitely how we're going to attack it with the source. We're going to have a little bit more time to do some more investigative work. But that is absolutely true. And I don't know, but one thing we got to do is we're going to have to start voting. We're going to have to, the churches, the community centers, NAACP, we're going to have to start voting, getting people registered to vote, providing transportation, getting them to the polls. We got to vote some people out, and we got to vote some people in. And people we get in, and I always, and I know I get criticized for this one. I'm ready to do it, and they get ready to criticize me. But I love the fact that you have a Sherry Dorsey Walker in the state and a Darius Brown. Oh, I could talk about other people, but no, I'm only talking because they are getting it done. And that's what's missing. You talked about Penrose. His fight was housing, getting it done.
No, don't put that in the past tense, because he's still battling.
Absolutely.
We're getting ready to rumble now.
Okay.
We're getting ready to rumble.
Okay. All right. Well, okay.
The leader's getting ready to step to the plate, so we'll keep you posted.
Right. Well, that is his battle, and he's been fighting it, and it didn't just start yesterday. There are people who may not make the press, who are out there, who are elected, doing great things. But the reason why I've been criticizing the city leadership so bad is because I watch certain districts, and while they are supporting the mayor because he ran their campaign or had their campaign ran, and they are buying them certain dinners, and they're just saying, way with my community. But we got some leaders who are showing us how to get it done.
Well, it's a sad and challenging time when you look at, I just don't understand. And, you know, the same independence I talked about ministers and others have, and I've had my entire career because I work for a Lutheran organization. But whether I was working for the Lutheran organization or I was working at the racetrack, you can't take my dignity from me. And I worked at the racetrack, send my kids to private school, send them to college. But I didn't take. You couldn't take my dignity. I don't care where I was working.
Right.
And I just don't understand how you can run for elected office, prevail, and not be independent. I just don't understand I don't understand that.
It's the promises.
I don't understand.
Because it's the
Nobody's
promises.
going to tell me what to do
Right.
as an elected official.
You got that right. But it becomes.
I will listen to your suggestions, accept your criticism, but ain't nobody going to tell me what to do. And I don't understand how anybody else in office can let somebody do that. How can you be controlled?
Because they've been bought. They've been bought. Sorry, you forgot to cash the check. You forgot to cash the check. When you're bought, you're a slave. And that's what's going on.
No.
I watch how some of these shows on Channel
but
28,
that
people
little
are starting to show up.
That little bit of money.
Yes,
for,
thank you.
For campaigns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And whatever social gatherings. That's not enough to make anybody, to put you in a position where you have to do anything.
When you have never had nothing, that little bit is a lot. And that's where I am today. When you've had nothing, that little bit of money, that little prestige that you're getting, that little power you have will make you drunk.
But you don't have any power when you're giving it all away.
But listen,
when you're giving it to somebody who obviously doesn't mean you any good and doesn't have any respect for you, that's what bothers me.
well, doesn't have
And
any, doesn't have
I
respect.
don't. Okay, I don't understand it. I simply don't understand how people can do that.
Yeah, but they understand what they're doing. But now that the light is being shed, and I don't care, we're going to keep these broadcasts going. I'm going to keep paying my bill until they put me off there.
Oh, they're going to put us off.
Well, we're going to watch that.
They're going to put us off.
I don't think Dennis would be that callous. I really don't. Or not Dennis, Ivan. I don't think he would be that callous. But I'll be watching. Because at some point, you have to speak truth to power. And these council persons who black like we are, whether you're in the Republican Party or in the Democratic Party,
But in the instant matter,
is not going to continue to
but
grow.
in the instant matter, the truth is the power.
Yeah. Yes, at the end of the day, you're absolutely correct. But what's going on now is starting to be exposed. And it's going to be exposed more and more and more. And we're going to continue to shed light.
It's getting ready to be exposed on a lot of fronts because it's not going to be business as usual.
No.
And nobody's playing here in terms of fulfilling responsibilities and obligations that we have to make life better. And it's not personal. I don't have anything against anybody personally, but it's what I see as the necessity to bring about positive change. It has nothing to do with individuals. It has to do with fundamentally flawed public policy that has to be changed.
Right.
And it has to be changed by any legal means necessary.
Yeah, and we also got to have people who have a heart for humanity. And I think a part of, you heard me say on the source, and I don't ever want to disrespect those who are elected, who are doing their jobs. But, I understand that the Greek word poly is many, and tick is a bloodsucker. So I always put together many bloodsuckers when you're dealing with politics. However, there's a lot of public servants who have worked hard, who have fought. I'm looking at one now. But there are others. But what we are experiencing now is people who are hungry for power. And they don't really have power because Donald
He
Trump
gave it away.
Once you have sold your soul, you don't have the power. Racism will continue until we find the anti-folks who say no more. Latino, we have that on the city council. I see it on some shows. Until she recognizes the community that she serves, and you don't serve them by selling yourself out so you can get a traffic light in your district. You vote and you do what is right. Same with the African Americans. One of them don't show up because they don't want to vote against. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. For those of you who are watching us, we're going to almost at the end of our session, end of our Coffee with Curry today. This is a special Coffee with Curry. Normally we bring people in and it's a different type of show, but I'm troubled. Pastor is troubled.
Where's my coffee?
Your coffee is the same place everybody else is. We don't give out coffee. back. What a joy it was to have Councilman Street to be a part of this conversation today. Yes, my heart was and is still heavy. You may say, Pastor, you are criticizing the mayor a little bit more than you should be, but leadership calls for certain things. And whenever we don't have an anti-racist leadership, then we have a leadership that embraces racism. Until the next time we get together, God bless you and heaven smile on you.